Hello once again, and welcome to Lore of the Cards, the series that reveals the lore hidden within your Hearthstone deck. After a little break in America, I'm back, and we already have the next 3 episodes lined up. Vol'jin is on the way, but since he's going to be a lot of work, I thought I'd get a shorter episode out first. And after Vol'jin, we'll celebrate 5,000 subscribers with a hero episode. There will be 3 to choose from at the end of this one. Until then, we'll be taking a look at a legendary from before GVG's release, the Cyclopean Goliath, Gruul. The art of the card is by Kev Walker, a British comic artist and illustrator based in Leeds. His career began in 1987, working on the weekly 2000 AD comic series, producing art for a short strip called Future Shocks. Walker would later work on some of the comic's most recognisable characters, including a name familiar to most people with even a small knowledge of comics, Judge Dredd. Walker also put his skill to work in the Warhammer comic series, being praised for his ability to bring humanity to the high fantasy world. Walker has also worked for DC Comics and is now with Marvel since 2006. He is the main artist of the Thunderbolt series since their Heroic Age reboot. Not only has Walker been prolific in the comic industry, he's worked on various trading card games and even made 2 album artworks for the death metal band Autopsy, Mental Funeral and Severed Survival, in case you're interested. Well, technically 3, since he produced an alternate cover for Severed Survival. The art used for the Gruul card is, surprise surprise, this appears to be becoming a theme in Hearthstone, not actually Gruul. Though in fairness to the Hearthstone team, there appears to be no official artwork of Gruul. The only thing that comes close to it is his raid's load screen, and even then, that's the game model made up to look like it was drawn. The card's art was originally used in the Warcraft trading card game for the card Gronn's Skullcracker. While the card may not be Gruul, it is at least a creature of the same race, a Gronn. So let's begin with looking at an in-depth history of how this race came to be, as we have briefly covered it in previous episodes. Many years ago, the Gronn's ancient ancestors strode across the orcish homeworld of Draenor. While we have never seen a live one of these beasts, the mighty earth giants must have been quite the marvel to behold. It is rumoured that the largest of these creatures, when it passed, formed an entire continent on Draenor, the lush yet harsh land of Gul'dan. The only information we have on these beasts, presumably known as Grom in the Orcish tongue, as Gromash means giant's heart, are their remains. In the time-travelling expansion, Warlords of Draenor, we see the bones of the last of these creatures, now acting as the home of the Thunderlord Orcs. The Orcs are hunter-gatherers at heart, and the Thunderlords specialised in big game, and there was none bigger than the Earth Giants. Presumably, these creatures were few and far between, as the Thunderlords hunted them to extinction. The corpses we find littering this past Draenor are relatively similar to the Earth Giants' children, the Gronn. Their body shape is similar, and they have a single eye, the only difference being the large horn jutting out of their forehead. There is evidence to suggest, however, that not all Earth Giants looked like this. During the Second War between the Orcs and the humans on the humans' world of Azeroth, the Orc warlock Gul'dan created undead sorcerers called Death Knights to counter the powerful mages of the Alliance's armies. The structures used to create and house these affronts to nature were temples of the damned, created using the bones of the giants from Draenor. The appearance of these bones differ to those of the past Draenor visited in Warlords. The bones used for the Temples of the Damned looked more human than Gronn, with 2 eyes and bones similar to those found in the human body. Unlike the other skeletons, these bones were so old that they had petrified. A possible explanation for this is that the Earth Giants began their lives looking a fair amount like humans, and as they adapted and evolved, they became more similar to the races that they would spawn, losing an eye and gaining a horn. Of course, this could just be retconned on Blizzard's part. The direct ancestors of the Earth Giants were the Magnaron, creatures of flesh and molten stone. They possibly look like a scaled down version of an Earth Giant, though that's just personal speculation. Again, players have only been able to lay eyes on these spectacular creatures thanks to the Warlords expansion. In our timeline, which runs parallel to the world of Warlords, the Magnaron disappeared when Draenor was torn apart by the reckless sorcery of the Orc Ner'zhul, becoming the world that is now known as Outland. Into the stone sections of their bodies, the Magnaron carve various runes and sigils. These magical runes allow the beasts to bend the elemental furies of Draenor to their will, giving them their own personal army. Furies are beings made purely out of the elements: wind, earth, fire and water. The Magnaron, not subjugated by the Iron Horde on this Draenor, belong to a faction called the Breakers, who seek to transform Draenor into a desolate wasteland akin to the continent of Frostfire Ridge. They war with the Primals, a faction which seeks the opposite, to turn the world into a lush jungle. The Magnaron then gave birth to the Gronn. The Gronn looked very similar to their ancestors, but their bodies were more fleshy when compared to the Magnaron. Gronn boast great strength, but lack a little in intelligence. They do, however, grow into becoming more intelligent, as adolescent Gronn, otherwise known as Gronnlings, possess little more intelligence than that of a basic beast. The Gronn would in turn give birth to more races: the Ogron, Ogre Lords and Ogres. Despite their family ties, the Gronn showed little love for their children, using their superior strength to establish a tyrannical rule over the Ogron and Ogres. The most powerful and intelligent Gronn that ruled them all was Gruul. Under Gruul's leadership, the Gronn would become the dominant force in Draenor, an army of ogres at their bidding to crush whomsoever opposed them. Gruul ruled through fear, having his subjects brutally beat and whip their ogre slaves. The Gronn were largely absent from the war between the Draenei and the Orcs on Draenor. The Orcs had been deceived by demons into thinking the Draenei were their enemies, and they sought ways to gain an upper hand on their adversaries. Gul'dan suggested drafting ogres into the Orcs' armies, an outlandish suggestion as ogre and orc had been enemies for generations. The leader of the Orcs' Black Hand listened to the Warlock's council, who was directly in league with the demons and truly led the Orcs. Black Hand targeted the Boulderfist clan, capturing 3 of the clan's ogres. With this bargaining chip, the Orcs were able to hold council with the clan chieftain, Kroll. It was at this time that the Orcs realised the ogres and the Ogron, who they had hunted to extinction, were nothing more than pawns of Gruul and his Gronn. Doomhammer, who had been sent by Black Hand to negotiate with Kroll, promised the clan protection from their Gronn overlords and a new enemy to fight, the Draenei. The Boulderfist eagerly accepted their alliance with the Orcs. Once this alliance was established, the Orcs drank the demonic blood of Manaroth, which empowered them with superhuman strength, and along with their newfound power and their ogre allies, destroyed the Draenei capital of Shattrath. Despite having a clan of their subjects stolen away from them, it did not appear as though the Gronn tried to take back what was theirs. It is established within Warcraft's lore that with the Draenei's defeat, the Orcs became a great power. So powerful that they ran out of enemies to fight and began fighting each other. There are no known large-scale conflicts between the Gronn and the Orcs at this time. It's possible that the forces were evenly matched, and as a result did not attack one another as the losses on both sides would be too high. Either way, when the Orcs invaded Azeroth, Gruul and his Gronn became Draenor's most powerful denizens. They remained the most powerful race on Draenor even when the Orcs returned, as the Orcs had been defeated by the Alliance on Azeroth. Not that there was much to rule. Thanks to the Orcs' war with the Draenei and their infighting, Draenor had become a shadow of what it used to be. The orc Ner'zhul decided to reinvigorate his people by opening portals to other worlds for them to conquer. In order to do this, however, they once again needed to invade Azeroth to get the necessary artifacts to perform the spell. Upon their return to Azeroth, Ner'zhul and his forces were met by the Black Dragon aspect, Deathwing. The Black Dragonflight had long been reviled on Azeroth, ever since Neltharion betrayed the other flights, becoming Deathwing as he had been corrupted by an ancient evil on Azeroth, the Old Gods. Deathwing offered his flight to aid Ner'zhul in claiming the artifacts he desired. In return, Deathwing was granted passage into Draenor, tailed by an alliance force led by Danath Trollbane, the Mage Khadgar, Illyria Windrunner, and Turellion. The mighty aspect believed that this new world would be a safe haven for his flight's eggs, and hid several clutches all over the world of Draenor. Deathwing thought there would be no creatures on Draenor that could stand up to his flight. Gruul and his brethren would have something to say about that. There are two tales for what happened next. Convinced his eggs needed little protection, Deathwing left Draenor, leaving a small number of his flight to guard the eggs. Deathwing hid some of his eggs in the regions of Frostfire Ridge and Gul'dan, territories ruled over by Gruul. Gruul and his Gronn saw the dragons as a possible threat to their supreme rule. Gruul led his Gronn and their ogre subjects into battle with the dragons, their sheer numbers overwhelming the serpents. The ogres of the Bladespire clan used their magical abilities to bring the dragons down from the sky. The rest of the dirty work was committed by Gruul. The mighty Gronn plucked the dragons from the sky and brutally impaled their bodies upon the spires of the mountains. From this day on, Gruul was worshipped as a deity by the ogres, and given the title Gruul the Dragon Killer. The account given in the novel Beyond the Dark Portal differs to this. In the novel, Deathwing remained on Draenor, and several of the heroes of the Alliance, Khadgar, Illyria and Turellion, who tailed the orcs, came face to face with Gruul. Despite his devastating strength, Gruul was also one of the more intelligent Gronn. He recognised Deathwing as a great threat to his crown, and that the heroes of the Alliance were also very powerful. Since the heroes were seeking the skull of gul'dan in Deathwing's possession, the heroes struck up an alliance with Gruul and the ogre clans led by his 7 sons. Gruul led an attack on the Black Flight, smashing eggs and impaling lesser drakes on the mountains of Blade's Edge. Enraged at the death of his flight, Deathwing swooped down to the battlefield and engaged Gruul. Like the Hearthstone cards, Gruul was no match for Deathwing, but the brave Gronn stood his ground. This allowed Khadgar to cast a spell on Deathwing, which disassembled several of the adamantite plates along the aspect's body. Deathwing was a being so powerful that his own power threatened to tear his body apart. The adamantite plates prevented this. His life in jeopardy, Deathwing fled the fight. Without their mighty leader, the dragons were easy prey for Gruul and his ogres, one by one being impaled upon the spires of the Blade's Edge Mountains. Which is the correct series of events, I'm not sure. The first would have happened before Draenor's collapse, when it became Outland, Ner'zhul having summoned his portals and torn the planet apart, as it specifies Frostfire Ridge and Gul'dan. After the calamity, Frostfire Ridge and Gul'dan collided to become the continent that is now known as the Blade's Edge Mountains, which is specified in the second tale. Even after Draenor had been twisted into Outland, Gruul did not lose control over his subjects and his territory. Blade's Edge was ruled by Gruul and his 7 sons, dragon corpses hanging from the mountain's spires as a grim reminder of Gruul's dominance. Players would first meet Gruul during the Burning Crusade expansion. Both Alliance and Horde had travelled back through the Dark Portal to Outland to confront the Burning Legion, a force that sought to bring destruction to all worlds. During this time, Gruul and his sons ran rampant through Blade's Edge Mountains and parts of Nagrand, or Nagrand, whatever. They were asserting their dominance, not actually engaging the Alliance or Horde directly. However, both factions knew that Gruul could become a huge threat to both of them if he chose to attack. The Alliance and Horde struck first, starting with Gruul's sons. Gronn the Dragon Killer was slain by heroes, goaded into a fight by the death of his Blood Maul ogres. Once drawn out, he was lured into a trap, making him an easy kill. Gralloch stood in a canyon guarding his bag of unknown possessions. These were stolen, and he would later be slain by a group of heroes. Gralloch was very strong and could hit players the hardest of Gruul's sons, though his powers did pale in comparison to his father's. Gruul assigned his son Magok to patrol the eastern mountain range of Blade's Edge. Magok delighted in obliterating all that stood in his way. The Alliance and Horde were also able to defeat him as well. Slag exiled himself from the Blade's Edge Mountains to Terakar Forest, where he took control of the Gorduni ogres. Again, he did not escape the wrath of the two factions. Dern the Hungerer strode through Nagrand and was killed to remove the Gronn presence from the area. Skullock the Soul Grinder was trained by the ogre warlock Vimgol. So not only did he possess superhuman strength, but could wield shadow magic as well. Before being defeated, Skullock was able to show what he had learnt, casting the spells Corruption and Banish. Finally, Gok, the powerful leader of the Bladespire ogres, met his end at the hands of Rexxar and an ally. Or Baron Sablemane if you were Alliance, but let's face it, Rexxar is much cooler. After the death of his sons, the Alliance and Horde came for Gruul. This was one of the earlier raids in the Burning Crusade expansion. 25 heroes were needed to test their mettle in 2 encounters. The first was against the Ogre Lord, High King Mulgar, and his entourage. Mulgar had been born to one of the weakest ogre clans, the Bladespire, but his birth put an end to that. Tales of his strength and his prowess in battle spread across the land until he was called before the High King to give a demonstration of his strength. He did, by snapping the king's neck. This immediately changed the balance of power between the ogre clans. The Boulderfists were no longer the strongest, and the Bladespire took over. Gruul noticed Mulgar's strength and welcomed him into his lair to act as his fanatically loyal right hand, making Mulgar the most powerful ogre in all of Outland. A mage, shaman, warlock and priest back Mulgar up within Gruul's lair, making for a powerful combination of magics, and with Mulgar's strength at the helm, an almost unstoppable force. When the heroes were able to defeat the ogres, they would try to destroy Gruul. This fight is what's commonly known as a DPS race, as Gruul grows more powerful and larger as the fight progresses, meaning that if he was not killed quick enough, he would end up one-shotting the party's tanks. This mechanic is also used in Hearthstone. The longer Gruul is out on the board in combat, he becomes progressively more powerful. Despite Gruul's savage attacks and the cave-ins his strength created, the heroes were eventually able to put an end to the mighty Dragon Killer. Despite being defeated, players are once again coming face to face with Gruul. After the Horde's warchief Garrosh Hellscream made a bid for the Orcs to become the race that ruled Azeroth, he was defeated and imprisoned. With some help from the time-travelling dragon Kairos Dormu, Garrosh was able to travel to a parallel universe, to the world of Draenor before it became Outland, a time before the Orcs drank the demon blood. He prevented this event and gave what would become known as the Iron Horde the blueprints to modern siege weaponry. With this, the Horde did not need the demon blood to become an unstoppable force. One of Garrosh's first actions was to bend as many of the races of Draenor to the will of the Iron Horde. One of these races were the Gronn. The giant beasts would be mounted with siege cannons to become the heavy artillery of the Iron Horde. The way that Garrosh was able to control such a large portion of the Gronn race was by subduing and controlling one of the most powerful Gronn, Gruul. Gruul is now a servant of the Iron Horde, and the first encounter of the Black Rock Foundry raid. His sons also make appearances within the expansion story and as dungeon bosses. Gruul is now degraded within the Foundry, the once mighty ruler being subjected to manual labour. His left hand has been severed and replaced with a hook to help him better drag pallets of fuel to the furnace of the Foundry. So, there you have it, Gruul the Dragon Killer, a ruler until his death, at least on our Draenor's timeline. If you have enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate a like, a subscribe, and all the lovely things that you can do to a video on YouTube. If you've hated it, by all means give it a dislike and plaster the comment section with hate. You could call into question my sexuality. There you are, that's one for free. If you've liked the art in the video, all the artists I've been able to credit are in the description below. For our 5,000 subs celebration, we will be covering a hero from Hearthstone, and I have 3 choices for you. Each of them will often use weapons to get ahead. So, would you like to find out about Valeera, Uther, or Garrosh? Let me know with the poll in the description, the comments, and on the Reddit discussion. Next time, we look at Vol'jin, finally. Happy Hearthstoning guys, and I'll be back for more Lore of the Cards.